Imagine for a moment that everything we thought we knew about the origin of our planet was wrong. The mountains, the oceans, the very atmosphere we breathe. What if none of it was purely the result of blind natural chance? What if Earth itself was engineered, designed by a far more advanced intelligence than our own? This is not the plot of some science fiction fantasy, but a question that lingers at the edges of science, history, and philosophy. A question that, if true, would shake the foundation of everything humanity has ever believed. Our story begins 4.5 billion years ago, when Earth first took form from the chaos of the early solar system. Collisions of dust, rock, and ice swirled together under the pull of gravity, gradually sculpting a sphere. Mainstream science assures us this was all a random sequence of natural processes. Yet there are anomalies, strange alignments, uncanny coincidences that whisper of something else at play. Earth just happens to orbit the Sun at a perfect distance to allow liquid water, the so-called habitable zone. Our atmosphere contains just the right mixture of oxygen and nitrogen, balanced with extraordinary precision. Even the tilt of Earth's axis, 23.5 degrees, creates the seasons, which in turn regulate ecosystems and biodiversity. The margin for error is razor thin. Too close to the Sun, and Earth would be scorched. Too far, and it would be an icy wasteland. Yet here we are, standing on a planet that seems almost tuned for life. Scientists call this the fine-tuning problem. It's not just Earth. The fundamental constants of the universe, gravity, the speed of light, the mass of an electron, are all calibrated within margins so impossibly narrow that even the slightest variation would make life as we know it impossible. But here's where the mystery deepens. What if Earth itself was not merely fortunate, but deliberately sculpted? What if our planet is not a cosmic accident, but a deliberate construct, a kind of biological arc, crafted to sustain intelligent life? Look closer at Earth's features, and patterns emerge that are difficult to dismiss. The Moon, for instance, is a puzzle in itself. Unlike other moons in the solar system, our Moon is enormous relative to its host planet, nearly 1/4 the size of Earth. Its presence stabilizes Earth's wobble, ensuring long-term climate stability. Without the Moon, our seasons would be chaotic, our climate unpredictable, and complex life might never have emerged. But how did such a perfect companion come to exist? The mainstream theory suggests a colossal impact with a Mars-sized body billions of years ago. Yet even that hypothesis fails to explain the Moon's strangely identical isotopic composition to Earth. In other words, the Moon appears to be made of the same material as our planet, as though it were deliberately carved from Earth itself and placed into orbit at just the right distance. A distance so precise that the Moon is 400 times smaller than the Sun, but also 400 times closer, creating the perfect alignment for solar eclipses. A cosmic coincidence found nowhere else in the known universe, too perfect to ignore. The deeper we look, the stranger it gets. Ancient cultures seem to sense this mystery, long before modern science gave it a name. The Sumerians, one of the world's first civilizations, spoke of beings called the Anunnaki gods, who came from the heavens and prepared the earth for humanity. Egyptian texts spoke of the gods who ordered the cosmos and set the stars in place. Even Native American and Aboriginal traditions echo tales of star people who guided the balance of life on Earth. Are these merely myths, or distorted memories of a time when humanity's ancestors actually witnessed the fingerprints of something greater? Now consider the genetic code itself, the foundation of life. Human DNA contains over 3 billion base pairs of information, structured in a language so sophisticated that even our most advanced computers cannot replicate it from scratch. Inside every cell lies a blueprint, encrypted instructions that govern the formation of proteins, tissues, organs, and consciousness itself. But within this code, researchers have identified what some call a biological signature. In 2013, Kazakh scientists Irina and Vladimir Shevchuk published a controversial study proposing that DNA contains mathematical patterns too precise to be accidental. Ratios, sequences, and numerical symmetries embedded in the genome suggest a kind of symbolic message, almost like a stamp of authorship. If this is true, then life on Earth was not merely the result of random mutation and selection, but the implementation of a design written in a universal language of numbers. And then comes the silence. The Fermi paradox tells us that if intelligent life exists elsewhere, the galaxy should be teeming with signs of it. Yet the cosmos is quiet. No radio signals, no alien ships. Unless we are the signal. Unless Earth itself is the project, the living experiment of beings so advanced they don't need to visit us in flying saucers. They left their message encoded in the bedrock of our world, in the DNA of every living thing. What if we are not merely inhabitants of Earth, but participants in an ancient design? The question is not simply whether aliens exist. It is whether we are already living inside their work. Imagine standing on a cliff at dawn, watching the horizon ignite with fire as the sun rises. The air tastes alive, charged with unseen forces. Birds sing, waves crash, and your heart beats with the rhythm of this planet. What if all of this, every sound, every breath, every particle, was engineered? If so, the Earth is not just our home, it is a machine, a living, breathing construct designed to nurture life, guide evolution, and perhaps test us. But who or what would do such a thing? If they exist, their technology would be so far beyond ours that it would appear indistinguishable from magic. Arthur C. Clarke once said that any sufficiently advanced technology is exactly that, indistinguishable from magic. Could it be that the myths of gods, angels, and celestial architects were never metaphors, but distorted recollections of true encounters with beings whose knowledge dwarfed ours by millions of years? Perhaps we were never meant to know, not fully. Perhaps the test is to see if we can discover it for ourselves. And so we search. We look to the stars, to ancient texts, to the molecules of our own cells, piecing together fragments of a puzzle too vast to comprehend. Each clue, a planetary coincidence, a genetic anomaly, a myth whispered across millennia, pushes us closer to a realization we are both terrified and desperate to accept, that Earth may not be a random rock in the void, but a crafted sanctuary, a garden, a seed. The question remains, why? Why would any civilization create such a place? Was it an act of benevolence, a gift to nurture life where none could exist? Was it an experiment, a cosmic laboratory to observe the rise of intelligence? Or was it something darker, a prison, a controlled environment designed to keep us in place until the moment of awakening? The possibilities are endless, but the evidence points us toward a single haunting truth. We are not alone, and we may never have been. Beneath the surface of Earth, the story grows even more unsettling. Our planet is not solid all the way through. It is layered with uncanny precision. The crust, so thin it's like an eggshell, rests upon a mantle that shifts and churns, driving the great continents across the globe. Beneath that, a molten outer core surrounds a solid inner core made primarily of iron and nickel. This configuration generates Earth's magnetic field, a shield invisible to the eye but vital for life. It deflects deadly solar radiation, prevents the atmosphere from being stripped away, and allows the conditions for water and biology to flourish. Without it, Earth would look like Mars, barren, lifeless, cold. But here's the mystery. Earth's magnetic field is unusually strong compared to similar planets, and its solid inner core appears far too young to match the planet's age. Some geophysicists propose that it may have crystallized only 1 billion years ago, perfectly timed for the explosion of complex life. As if the very heart of Earth turned on a switch, resetting conditions to allow us to be here at this precise moment. Coincidence or calibration? The oceans too tell a story that defies simplicity. Covering more than 70% of the planet's surface, they regulate climate, store carbon, and serve as the cradle of all known life. The exact salinity of seawater, about 3.5%, is not random. It is the perfect balance for biochemical processes, matching the electrolyte levels within the cells of our bodies. Too salty, and water would be toxic. Too fresh, and life as we know it would falter. Did this ratio emerge from blind chance, or was it part of an equation written into the planet's design? Even stranger is the distribution of water itself. Earth is the only known planet with liquid oceans at the surface, and though scientists suggest comets or volcanic release as their source, the sheer abundance seems peculiar. Billions of tons of water delivered in exactly the right proportion, maintained across eons, and replenished by a closed-loop system of evaporation and rainfall. This balance is so precise that if sea levels rose or fell just a fraction more, much of human civilization would not exist. Who or what ensured that equilibrium? Now look upward. Earth's atmosphere is a masterpiece of composition. It contains roughly 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and trace gases like carbon dioxide, argon, and methane. Too much oxygen and fires would consume everything. Too little and advanced life could not breathe. Nitrogen acts as the perfect buffer, stabilizing the mixture and maintaining pressure for liquid water. High above, the ozone layer shields us from ultraviolet radiation, a delicate chemical veil, invisible yet indispensable. Scientists often marvel at how Earth's atmosphere remains within a narrow range, despite volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and the sun's variable output. If this system was slightly off balance for just a few million years, evolutionary history might have ended in silence. Instead, the system held firm. It is almost as though the atmosphere was fine-tuned not once, but continuously, like an instrument being adjusted to keep the melody of life in tune. As civilizations rose, humans began to notice these patterns long before they had the science to explain them. The ancients aligned their monuments with the stars and planets, as if searching for answers in the heavens. The Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned with astonishing precision to true north, within 3/60ths of a degree. Stonehenge marks the solstices with eerie accuracy. The Mayans built observatories capable of predicting solar and lunar eclipses. But what were they trying to understand? Were they simply honoring the cycles of nature, or were they attempting to decode the same puzzle that now confronts us, that Earth is not an accident, but an artifact? Some modern thinkers propose the concept of the simulation hypothesis, that our reality is not physical at all, but digital, coded by advanced beings in some higher dimension. But what if Earth is not a simulation, but a hybrid, both physical and engineered, a living construct with layers of design embedded in its very geology? Imagine a planet seeded with genetic material, nurtured over billions of years, where species rise and fall according to a hidden blueprint. Dinosaurs ruled for 165 million years before a cataclysm wiped them away. Mammals, fragile and small, then surged forward, eventually giving rise to humans. Evolution appears random, yet its trajectory is unmistakable, toward intelligence, toward consciousness. Could it be that extinction events, tectonic shifts, and climate changes are not merely random disasters, but deliberate resets, ensuring that life would eventually converge towards self-awareness? The unsettling part is not that Earth may have been designed, but that we might be part of an experiment still in progress. Consider the rapid acceleration of human intelligence. For millions of years, hominids evolved slowly, their tools simple, their lives precarious. Yet around 50,000 years ago, an evolutionary blink, something changed. Humans developed language, art, symbolic thought. Cave walls blossomed with paintings, myths were told around fire, and the seeds of civilization were sown. Genetic studies reveal a sudden mysterious shift during this period, a reconfiguration in brain structure, possibly linked to a single genetic mutation or external influence. Some researchers speculate that this great leap forward was too abrupt to be explained by natural selection alone. What if it was triggered, nudged, or even implanted by an outside intelligence? The fingerprints of design may not be only in Earth itself, but in us. The implications are staggering. If Earth is a project, then so are we. Our DNA could be the record of our creators, not merely instructions for life, but also a message waiting to be decoded. Perhaps the anomalies, the mathematical sequences, the symmetrical patterns, are the breadcrumbs they left behind. A reminder that we are not alone, and that one day we would have the tools to see it. The discovery of CRISPR technology, which allows us to edit genomes like text in a book, may not be the dawn of new science, but the rediscovery of an ancient one, a science that was used on us, long before we held it in our hands. As you listen to these words, look around at the world you inhabit, the forests, the rivers, the mountains rising into mist, the sound of your own heartbeat. Everything feels natural, but what if natural is itself a crafted illusion? If Earth is designed, then nature is not chaos, but choreography. And you are part of the dance. But here is the most haunting question of all. If Earth was designed by aliens, where are they now? Did they leave us long ago, abandoning their creation? Do they watch us still, hidden beyond our perception, waiting for humanity to pass a test we do not even know exists? Or are they closer than we imagine, woven into our myths, our genes, perhaps even walking among us unnoticed? The truth may be terrifying, because to accept that Earth was designed is to accept that someone, or something, still holds the blueprint. Then there are the ruins. Silent, immovable witnesses to a forgotten story carved in stone. Scattered across Earth are structures so vast, so impossibly precise, that even today, with our modern technology, we cannot easily explain how they were made. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as the most famous, aligned with the Orion constellation and the cardinal directions with surgical precision. Its base is nearly a perfect square, its sides aligned within fractions of a degree. Each block weighs several tons, yet they were stacked to form a monument that rises nearly 500 feet into the desert sky. Engineers still debate whether our best cranes and tools could replicate such a feat. To call it mere coincidence that ancient humans, thousands of years ago, created monuments aligned with cosmic patterns stretches the imagination thin. Were they guided, or were they leaving us a map? A clue that Earth's design was not solely of this world. Travel across the ocean to the highlands of Peru, where the stones of Sacsayhuaman lock together like a puzzle. Some weigh more than 100 tons, carved with joints so tight that even a blade of grass cannot slip between them. These walls have endured earthquakes, weather, and time, standing as if they were meant to last forever. Archaeologists say they were cut with bronze tools and manpower, but many of the blocks show curved cuts, melted edges, and precision that suggests heat or technologies beyond what we credit to the Inca. The question is not only how these structures were built, but why they seem engineered to defy destruction, as if their makers wanted them to outlast civilizations, to wait for us, to remind us that Earth's story has authorship far older than our textbooks admit. And then there is Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the world's oldest known temple, dating back more than 11,000 years. Massive T-shaped pillars stand in circular enclosures, decorated with carvings of animals and symbols. This site predates Stonehenge by 6,000 years and the pyramids by 7,000. According to conventional history, humans of that time were hunter-gatherers, not architects. Yet here, on a windswept hill, they built something requiring complex knowledge of stonework, astronomy, and ritual. It's as if an advanced spark lit their minds, allowing them to leap forward in ways unexplainable by slow cultural evolution. Was Göbekli Tepe humanity's first attempt to echo the design they sensed all around them, a blueprint whispered into their consciousness by forces beyond their comprehension? Even the placement of these monuments across Earth is curious. Draw a line connecting the pyramids of Giza, Teotihuacan in Mexico, and Angkor Wat in Cambodia, and you find uncanny symmetries. Many lie along what some researchers call the Earth grid, alignments that trace geometric patterns across the globe. These grids correspond with magnetic anomalies and natural energy lines, suggesting the ancients may have known or been shown something about Earth's hidden architecture. If Earth was designed, perhaps these monuments were built to interact with that design, serving as nodes in a network, amplifying energies we no longer understand. Were these structures human attempts to communicate with the architects of Earth, or part of the design itself? And then comes the sky. For thousands of years, humans have told stories of visitors descending from the heavens, winged beings, glowing orbs, chariots of fire, myths that stretch from the Bible's sons of God to the Sumerian Anunnaki, from the Hopis ant people to the Dogon tribe of Mali, who somehow knew details about the star Sirius, invisible without telescopes. Were these simply the imagination of early humans gazing upward in awe, or were they recollections, distorted memories of encounters with the very beings who designed Earth? Myths, after all, are not always lies. Sometimes they are truths wrapped in metaphor, stories told in the only language a culture can grasp. Scientific anomalies mirror these whispers. Consider Earth's age, 4.54 billion years. For 3 billion of those years, life existed only as simple microbes. Then suddenly, 541 million years ago, during what we call the Cambrian explosion, complex life burst forth in an evolutionary blink. Creatures with eyes, exoskeletons, segmented bodies appeared with no clear transitional forms. Evolution, normally gradual, accelerated as though someone had pressed fast forward. Some scientists argue it was environmental, others say genetic mechanisms evolved. But what if it was neither? What if the Cambrian explosion was a reboot? A deliberate intervention to seed complex organisms, ensuring life's trajectory continued toward intelligence, and that trajectory always bends toward one outcome: us, human beings. A species uniquely self-aware, capable of abstract thought, morality, and wonder. We are not the strongest, fastest, or most resilient creatures, yet we dominate the planet. Why? Because of our minds. Evolutionary biologists often point out how unusual our brains are, so large for our body size, consuming 20% of our energy. In evolutionary terms, such a costly organ should have been selected against. And yet here it is, the crown of our biology. What if it was never random? What if our intelligence was the intended destination, the very reason Earth was designed? If that's true, then the next question is chilling. What are we being prepared for? If Earth is a project, then its creators must have a purpose. Are we being raised to join them among the stars? Or are we being tested, observed like specimens in a vast terrarium? Perhaps every war, every triumph, every technological leap is not ours alone, but part of a grand narrative written before our species ever walked upright. And if that's the case, then what happens when the experiment reaches its conclusion? The evidence is circumstantial, scattered across science, myth, and stone. But when the pieces are gathered, a pattern begins to form. Earth's perfect orbit, its atmosphere, its magnetic shield, its oceans, all improbably balanced. Ancient monuments, aligned with the cosmos, built with methods that defy explanation. Sudden leaps in evolution, sudden sparks of civilization, sudden bursts of intelligence. Too many coincidences, layered across billions of years, converging on one truth. Earth looks like a design, and we, its inhabitants, may be both its beneficiaries and its subjects. Which brings us to the most haunting possibility of all. If Earth is designed, then design implies designers. And if designers exist, then one day we may meet them again. If Earth was designed, then every sunrise may not just be the start of a day. It may be a signal, a pulse of a system still running. Which leads us to an unsettling question. Are we still being monitored? For decades, scientists have been listening to the cosmos through projects like SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. They sweep the skies with radio telescopes, hoping to catch even the faintest whisper of another civilization. And while most signals turn out to be cosmic noise or human interference, a few remain tantalizing. The most famous is the WOW signal, detected in 1977 by the Big Ear Radio Telescope in Ohio. A strong narrowband radio signal lasting 72 seconds, coming from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. Astronomers searched for it again, but it never reappeared. Was it an accident of nature or a deliberate ping? A message sent to remind us that we are not alone. Some researchers argue the frequency was chosen with intelligence, centered near 1420 MHz, the frequency of hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe, as if whoever sent it knew we would be listening. Other signals lurk in the data, unexplained bursts of energy that defy classification, fast radio bursts, immense explosions of radio waves lasting milliseconds seem to arrive from billions of light years away. While many believe they are natural, perhaps from collapsing stars, others wonder if they are cosmic lighthouses, intentional beacons sent across the galaxy. And though official science is cautious, the pattern is familiar, anomalies dismissed as noise, only to return years later with new evidence. It feels as though the universe keeps whispering, but we do not yet understand the language. But perhaps we have been looking in the wrong place all along. Instead of searching the stars, maybe we should be examining Earth itself. If our planet was designed, then it may contain hidden structures, hidden codes, even hidden technologies buried deep below. Consider the wow signal of biology. The genetic code, encoded within DNA, are not just instructions for life, but patterns that mirror mathematics, ratios of prime numbers, repetitions that seem symbolic. Some researchers speculate it may be a message, placed there for when we became advanced enough to read it. A cosmic hello, encoded into the blueprint of every living thing. If so, then Earth does not simply bear the fingerprints of design, it carries the signature of its designers. The possibility of monitoring grows even stranger when we look at our own skies. For centuries, stories of mysterious lights, craft, and visitors have circulated among civilizations. Ancient Roman historians wrote of flying shields crossing the heavens. Medieval texts speak of fiery wheels and glowing orbs. And in our modern era, from Roswell in 1947 to the Pentagon's recent admission of unidentified aerial phenomena, the mystery has only deepened. Pilots describe objects accelerating at speeds no human craft can survive, turning at impossible angles, vanishing in silence. If Earth was designed, then perhaps these sightings are not outsiders intruding, but caretakers checking their work, not invaders, but overseers. The architects of Earth ensuring their creation still functions as intended. The motives behind such design are where awe turns into dread. Imagine three possibilities. First, benevolence. Earth is a garden, seeded and nurtured, a gift of life meant to thrive in a universe of silence. If this is true, then humanity is cherished, meant to grow, evolve, and perhaps one day join the architects among the stars. Second, indifference. Earth is an experiment, a test tube where life unfolds, watched without intervention, its outcomes neither celebrated nor mourned. In this case, we are curiosities, not children. And third, the most unsettling, control. Earth is a cage, a farm, a terrarium. Humanity raised not for freedom, but for some purpose we cannot yet comprehend. Our myths of gods demanding sacrifice, our instincts of worship, our endless urge to look skyward, perhaps they are echoes of a relationship we do not remember. Consider this. In the fossil record, 99% of all species that have ever lived are now extinct. Extinction, while tragic, clears the stage for what comes next. Dinosaurs fell, and mammals rose. Ice ages came, reshaping ecosystems, forcing adaptation. What if these were not accidents, but scheduled resets? What if the architects of Earth pruned their creation the way a gardener trims a tree, ensuring it grows in a particular shape? That would mean humanity's survival is not guaranteed. We exist only because our role is not yet complete. And maybe, just maybe, our role is reaching its climax. For the first time in history, humanity has begun reshaping Earth itself. We alter the atmosphere, raise global temperatures, trigger extinctions, build cities visible from space. We launch satellites, extend our reach to the Moon, Mars, and beyond. In the last century alone, we have transformed from a species bound to the soil to one that manipulates atoms, genes, and digital realities. Could this be the threshold, the moment the experiment reaches maturity? If so, then contact, real, undeniable contact, may not be centuries away. It may be close, imminent. And if that day comes, will it be a reunion or a reckoning? Will the architects arrive as teachers, embracing us as graduates of their design? Or will they return as wardens, ensuring that their creation does not stray beyond its intended bounds? The truth is, we do not know, but the signs suggest that Earth is not simply a planet, it is a stage, and the final act may be approaching. Which leads us to a terrifying thought. What if they never left? What if the architects still walk among us, unseen? What if their presence is hidden not in the stars, but in the gaps of our own perception, in the myths we call gods, angels, or even demons? If so, then history is not merely the story of humanity. It is the story of a relationship between the designed and the designers, a story that stretches from the dawn of life to this very moment as you listen now, and perhaps as they listen too. Mathematics has often been called the language of the universe, a code that transcends culture, species, and even biology itself. It governs the spiral of galaxies, the orbits of planets, the rhythm of waves upon the shore. If Earth was designed, then surely its architects would leave behind markers in this universal tongue clues that cannot be erased by erosion or hidden by time. And indeed, when we look closely, we find them. The golden ratio, 1.618, appears again and again in nature, in the spiral of seashells, the branching of trees, the pattern of hurricanes, even in the proportions of the human body. Why should such a specific number emerge so consistently? Was it simply the logic of physics, or was it embedded deliberately, a signature scrawled across every living thing? To see the golden ratio is to glimpse a mind at work, a sense of symmetry that speaks not of chaos but of artistry. Then there is pi, the infinite number that defines the relationship between a circle's circumference and its diameter. Circles, the symbol of perfection, of cycles without end, are everywhere in the cosmos, from planets to stars to the orbit of galaxies. Pi is the constant that binds them all. And yet, within pi's infinite decimals, researchers have found unexpected sequences, patterns that feel almost too orderly to be random. Some theorists speculate that if we could decode pi fully, we might find not only the blueprint of the cosmos, but the fingerprint of its designers. Imagine discovering within those endless numbers a message, a phrase, an equation deliberately placed for us to find once we reach the necessary level of intellect. If Earth was designed, then mathematics may not only describe reality, it may be the message itself. Even the calendar of the heavens seems to conspire with design. Consider solar eclipses. The moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, but also 400 times closer to Earth, making it appear almost exactly the same size in our sky. This allows for perfect eclipses, moments where the moon covers the sun completely, revealing the glowing corona. It is a spectacle unique to Earth, unmatched anywhere else in the solar system. Without eclipses, we might never have understood the sun's structure, its atmosphere, its secret. Was this alignment chance, or was it calibrated, a teaching tool embedded in the sky itself? To stand in the shadow of a total eclipse is to feel the hand of something vast, something deliberate. Ancient civilizations did not ignore these patterns. They built their temples, monuments, and myths around them. The Mayan calendar, tracking celestial cycles with extraordinary accuracy, predicted eclipses centuries in advance. The Egyptians aligned their pyramids with Orion's belt, mirroring the heavens upon the earth. The Nazca lines of Peru, enormous geoglyphs only visible from the sky, form shapes of animals, spirals, and runways stretching for miles. Who were they meant for? Humans who could not fly, or visitors who looked down from above? If Earth is a design stage, then perhaps these monuments were the first attempts at communication, messages carved into the ground, desperate to reach the architects who set the play in motion. But mathematics is not the only language of design. Prophecy itself, stories written across cultures, hints at a deeper rhythm. Nearly every civilization has told of a time when beings will return from the heavens, when the cycle will complete, when the truth will be revealed. From the Hopi prophecy of the blue star Kachina, to the Christian revelation of a descending New Jerusalem, from the Hindu cycles of creation and destruction, to the Mayan accounts of cosmic renewal, each speaks of endings and beginnings, of contact and revelation. Skeptics dismiss them as archetypal myths, reflections of human psychology. But what if they are more than that? What if they are embedded instructions, echoes of a message given to our ancestors, designed to survive through stories until the moment we were ready to understand? Modern science, too, has begun to stumble upon anomalies it cannot explain. Cosmic alignments in the background radiation of the universe, the so-called axis of evil, defy predictions of randomness, as though the very fabric of space-time carries an imprint. The constants of physics appear finely tuned, balanced on a knife's edge. The cosmological constant, which governs the expansion of the universe, is so precise that if it were altered by even one part in 10^120, the universe would either collapse or expand too quickly for stars to form. To call this luck is almost laughable. It is as though the universe itself was written with purpose, and Earth, orbiting in its habitable niche, is the jewel of that purpose. If so, then humanity may be on the verge of uncovering undeniable proof. Our telescopes peer deeper into space than ever before. The James Webb Space Telescope has already found planets with atmospheres that hint at life, and the data it collects may soon reveal biosignatures, gases that could only exist if sustained by living organisms. If we find them, the myth of Earth as unique will collapse. But what if the architects intended this moment? What if the discovery of other habitable worlds is the next stage of the design, pushing us to question not just where life exists, but why this planet, this species, this time was chosen? The pieces are converging. Ancient monuments whisper of guidance. Mathematics reveals a symmetry too perfect to ignore. Myths hint at return. Science trembles on the edge of a revelation it cannot frame in natural terms. The question is no longer if Earth was designed, but why? And in that why lies the possibility of both wonder and terror, because to be designed is to have a purpose, and to have a purpose is to belong not to ourselves but to those who created us. Imagine the moment when the truth is unveiled, a signal decoded, a structure unearthed, a pattern undeniable. Imagine scientists, governments, and ordinary people all confronting the same realization at once, that we are not a cosmic accident, but a creation. Some would rejoice, seeing in it the hand of gods they always believed in. Others would despair, feeling like prisoners in a cage they cannot escape. Wars could erupt, religions could fracture, future, societies could collapse under the weight of the revelation, or perhaps humanity would finally unite, seeing itself not as separate nations and tribes, but as one species, bound by a shared origin. A species standing at the edge of graduation, ready to meet the architects of its world. And maybe, that is the final design, not the Earth itself, not even life upon it, but the evolution of consciousness. Perhaps the ultimate experiment is not in oceans or DNA, but in the human mind. To see if, given the stage, the tools, and the whispers of guidance, we could discover the truth on our own. And now, as our technology accelerates, as we reach toward the stars, as we decode our own biology and shape our own destiny, the experiment approaches its conclusion. The architects may not need to return. They may already be here, waiting for us to prove we understand, waiting for us to say, at last, we see the design, and perhaps, when we do, the stars will answer. Beneath the sands of Peru's Nazca Desert, where immense geoglyphs stretch across miles of arid earth, archaeologists have long debated their purpose. Massive lines form hummingbird, monkeys, and spiders, etched so precisely that their scale is only visible from the sky. The mainstream explanation is that they were ceremonial or astronomical markers. But there is another possibility. What if they were messages? A beacon carved into Earth's crust to be seen not by humans, but by watchers above. Could it be that the Nazca were not simply creating art, but responding to something they once saw descend from the heavens? Some lines are perfectly straight, running for over 10 miles, as if cut with a precision laser. Others form geometries that map directly to star constellations. Coincidence or collaboration? Travel east to the plains of Giza, and the enigma only deepens. The Great Pyramid, once gleaming with polished limestone casing, reflects dimensions that align with Earth itself. Its base perimeter divided by twice its height equals pi. The pyramid's orientation to true north is within 3/60 of a degree, accuracy that modern compasses can barely match. Each block, weighing 2 to 80 tons, was positioned with microscopic precision, so tight a blade of grass cannot fit between them. Even more striking is that when viewed from above, the three pyramids align almost perfectly with Orion's belt. Was this humanity's first attempt to reach back toward the stars, or a blueprint handed down from those who already lived among them? Deep beneath the waves of the Pacific, sonar scans have revealed the Yonaguni Monument, an underwater structure off the coast of Japan. Its stepped terraces, massive pillars, and symmetrical design suggest an ancient city swallowed by the sea. While some geologists insist it's a natural formation, others point to chisel marks, right angles, and staircases carved with deliberate intent. If this site predates known human civilization, who were the architect? And could it be a remnant of a time when advanced knowledge did not belong to us at all? Then there are the legends whispered across cultures, as if every civilization is echoing fragments of the same memory. The Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki, celestial beings who descended to teach humanity writing, agriculture, and law. The Mayans described gods descending on feathered serpents, bringing the secrets of time and astronomy. In India's Vedic texts, stories tell of Vimanas, flying machines piloted by beings who fought wars in the skies with weapons of unimaginable power. These were not mere allegories. The descriptions of propulsion systems, aerial battles, and radiant energies read with unsettling technical detail, as though they were eyewitness accounts. Did ancient people invent these stories, or were they recording their encounters in the only language they had? In 1974, a simple act of human curiosity may have triggered a cosmic reply. The Arecibo message, a coded signal transmitted from Puerto Rico's radio telescope, was designed to broadcast our existence into the stars. It contained our DNA structure, our solar system, and the image of a human being. 27 years later, in 2001, a crop formation appeared overnight in the fields of Chilbolton, England. Unlike previous abstract designs, this one bore an eerie resemblance to the Arecibo message, only altered. The DNA strands were different. The solar system had a planet displaced, and instead of a human figure, the image depicted a humanoid with an oversized head and dark almond-shaped eyes. Dismissed by skeptics as an elaborate hoax, it nevertheless raised a chilling question. Did someone or something answer us? Consider the silence of space itself. The Fermi paradox asks, if life is common in the universe, where is everyone? Why has no undeniable signal, no spaceship, no emissary revealed itself? Perhaps the answer lies not in their absence, but in their proximity. What if the architects are not light years away, but already here, hidden in plain sight, watching, guiding, intervening only when necessary, shaping the course of humanity as though we are seedlings in a vast interstellar garden? Modern physics has begun to blur the line between science and mystery. Quantum entanglement shows that particles separated by light years can influence each other instantaneously, defying the limits of space-time. Dark matter, making up 85% of the universe, remains invisible and undetectable, yet it shapes the galaxies. These are phenomena that suggest we live in a universe where unseen forces determine everything we experience. Could it be that our very reality is a construct, an engineered design, not unlike a simulation? If so, the designers are not gods, but engineers, manipulating physics with a mastery that appears divine only to those who cannot comprehend it. And so, we stand at the edge of a revelation that could rewrite everything we know. Perhaps we are not the pinnacle of creation, but the project of something far older, far wiser, and far beyond. The evidence is scattered, etched into stone, whispered in legend, and buried beneath oceans and deserts. A story that stretches from the birth of civilization to the signals we send into the stars today. A story waiting for us to see, not as fragments, but as one continuous design. What if Earth itself was never just a planet that happened to harbor life? What if it was meant to? But then, as astronomers turned their attention from the stars back to our own fragile blue planet, a chilling thought began to take root. The perfection of Earth itself seemed unnatural. Our orbit is not wildly eccentric like Mars, swinging closer to and farther from the Sun with dangerous extremes. Our tilt, 23.5 degrees, is just enough to create seasons that keep climates stable, but not so extreme that ecosystems collapse. Even the Moon, enormous by cosmic standards, behaves as though it were deliberately placed. It stabilizes our axis, pulls the tides that nurture life, and glows like a watchful guardian in the night sky. A single cosmic accident may explain one of these coincidences, but all of them layered so precisely. To some, it no longer looked like chance, it looked like engineering. Biologists too began to whisper about peculiar patterns. Take DNA, the very code of life, a double helix carrying 3 billion letters in humans alone. When mapped, the sequences contain redundancy, stop-start signals, and repair mechanisms that function like programming protocols. Some scientists, peering into the microscopic lattice, admitted privately that it resembled a kind of biological software, too robust, too elegant to have emerged without guidance. Evolution, of course, explains the branching of life, the adaptations, the survival of the fittest. But what if evolution itself had been seeded, nudged, directed by an unseen hand? What if the code was planted, not merely written by nature? And then there are the stories humanity has told for millennia, myths carved into stone, whispered through ritual, sung around fires, long before our ancestors wrote them down. The Sumerians spoke of beings who descended from the sky to shape humanity, gifting us knowledge and kingship. In Egypt, gods with falcon heads and eyes like stars watched over a people who suddenly seemed to know mathematics, architecture, and astronomy beyond their time. Half a world away, the Maya and the Inca etched tales of sky serpents and luminous beings who walked among mortals. Are these mere metaphors or fragments of memory? Echoes of an era when creators walked openly on their design? Yet perhaps the most unsettling clue did not come from stone or soil, but from the silence of the stars. In 1977, a radio telescope in Ohio recorded a strange burst of energy. It lasted just 72 seconds. Astronomer Jerry Emmons circled it on the printout and wrote a single word in the margin. Wow! Decades later, no one has ever explained it. No satellite, no earthly signal, no natural phenomenon quite matches it. Officially, it remains an anomaly. But what if it wasn't? What if that was a test, a flare in the dark, a whisper from the designers reminding us that the truth is there, waiting? For centuries, philosophers have asked, why is the universe comprehensible? Why does math, a human invention, describe reality so perfectly, from the orbit of planets to the spin of electrons? Albert Einstein himself marveled at this strange miracle. The most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible. And if Earth was designed, then this very harmony is no accident. It was built so we could understand it. The patterns were placed like breadcrumbs in the forest, waiting for us to follow. But the breadcrumbs lead somewhere darker than comfort. Because if Earth was designed, then the designers had intent, a plan, and suddenly, every mystery of our past, every lost civilization, every inexplicable monument, every whisper of gods who came from the sky, begins to converge like rivers flowing to a single ocean. Were we built to rise, to advance, to serve, or are we an experiment, one that might one day be judged a success, or quietly erased? And here is where the story tightens. Because evidence does not remain locked in the past, it bleeds into our present, into the satellites orbiting overhead, into the signals we beam outward in search of neighbors. Somewhere out there, perhaps closer than we think, the ones who planted the seed are still watching, waiting for us to connect the final dots. The evidence was no longer scattered whispers, it was beginning to form a chorus. Earth itself seemed to hum with a design too intricate to dismiss. The magnetic field, for instance, the invisible shield that protects us from lethal cosmic radiation, behaved with a precision almost uncanny. Every 11 years, like the ticking of a celestial clock, the sun erupts in violent storms of plasma, flares that could strip away our atmosphere and boil our seas. Yet Earth's magnetic shield flexes, bends and absorbs the assault, holding just firm enough to preserve life, but never so rigid as to shatter under pressure. Geophysicists calculate the odds of such a field forming naturally on a planet of our size and composition, and the results stagger belief. For many worlds, a core solidifies too quickly, a field collapses too soon. But here, it has persisted for billions of years, as though maintained, as though sustained. And then there is the Moon, our silent companion, forever locked in its gentle embrace with Earth, not too close to rip our planet apart with tides, not too far to abandon us to chaos, just perfectly positioned to stabilize Earth's wobble, to keep our seasons steady, to cradle the evolution of life in a predictable rhythm. Astronomers have long noted its improbable size, a moon far larger than most planets should ever claim. Its origin remains one of the most debated mysteries in science. A colossal collision? A captured wanderer? Or something placed with intent, as though a stabilizer bolted to a cosmic machine? Without the moon, complex life on Earth might never have emerged. And yet, here it hangs, a silent guardian in the sky, its surface pockmarked with eons of history, its face always turned toward us, watching. Ancient civilizations seem to know something about that gaze. The Sumerian, the Egyptian, the Mayan. Cultures separated by oceans and centuries, all spoke of beings who descended from the heavens, who whispered knowledge, who guided the rise of agriculture, mathematics, architecture. Myths call them gods, sky beings, watchers. But what if they were not gods at all, but custodians of the design? A relay team, ensuring humanity took its next step, nudging us toward discovery without revealing the architects themselves. Consider the pyramids aligned to Orion, the Nazca lines stretching like messages meant only for eyes above, or the uncanny astronomical precision encoded in stone structures that should have been impossible for their time. Were these monuments offerings to the stars, or signals from the designers, ensuring their blueprint was never forgotten? And then there was the signal. In 1977, a strange burst was picked up by a radio telescope in Ohio. It lasted just 72 seconds. A sound so unusual, so striking, that the astronomer who found it circled it in red ink and wrote just one word in the margin: wow. For decades, it has lingered, unexplained, a lone flare in the cosmic dark. Mainstream science chalked it up as a coincidence, perhaps a natural source. But what if it wasn't? What if it was a breadcrumb left behind, like a bell chime designed to be noticed only once our species had learned to listen? And if it was, then who sent it? The more one looks, the more one wonders if it was never sent from out there, but rather from here. A whisper baked into the system, activated when we were ready to hear. Piece by piece, the foundation of our understanding began to tremble. Science, mythology, astronomy, once separate threads were weaving together into a tapestry that suggested one terrifying possibility: that Earth was not a random cradle of life, but an engineered habitat. A place designed with intent, with constraints, with rules we only now are beginning to decode. And if that is true, then why? Because a design implies a designer, and a designer implies purpose. And as that realization begins to crystallize, humanity finds itself standing at the edge of the greatest question in history, not whether we are alone in the universe, but whether we were ever alone on Earth. But perhaps the most chilling thought is this: what if all of these breadcrumbs were not coincidences, but an invitation, a message embedded in the very fabric of our world, waiting for us to rise high enough in knowledge, long enough in survival, to finally see the pattern? It is as if the Earth itself is whispering to us, through the rocks, through the oceans, through the perfect balance of day and night, that we were never alone and never accidental. Imagine the perspective of those who might have designed it. To them, Earth is not a random pebble adrift in a void, but a carefully cultivated seed, placed in just the right orbit, with just the right chemistry, waiting for consciousness to bloom. And now, after billions of years, that seed has sprouted into us, the watchers, the thinkers, the question askers. And yet, if this design was intentional, then it carries with it a responsibility that weighs heavier than any discovery in human history, because it means that life is not just a fragile accident, it is the intended outcome of a plan. We are not the universe's mistake, we are its fulfillment. But then comes the haunting question: for what purpose? If the Earth is an engineered cradle, then are we its children, its experiment, or its heirs? Were we meant to reach this stage, to peer into the cosmos with telescopes and algorithms, to finally lift our heads and see beyond the veil? Or are we still infants, fumbling in the dark, nowhere near ready to grasp the truth left for us? The more we discover about our world, the more it feels as though we are standing in the middle of a vast cathedral, one we didn't build, yet one that seems designed to inspire awe. The laws of physics act as its walls, the constants of nature its pillars, and the fragile blue curve of our atmosphere its ceiling. And in this cathedral, humanity has only just begun to whisper prayers of understanding, not realizing they may be heard. If we are the result of design, then somewhere, someone, or something once held the blueprint. Perhaps they are long gone, erased by time, as countless civilizations are. Or perhaps they are still out there watching silently, waiting for the moment when the final puzzle piece clicks into place. And maybe that moment is now. Because for the first time in history, humanity has reached the threshold. We can send our voices to the stars. We can alter the code of life itself. We can shape worlds, split atoms, and bend reality in ways that mimic creation itself. In other words, we are becoming the very architects we once speculated about. Which raises a final, almost unbearable irony. What if the Earth was designed not to be our home forever, but to be our teacher? What if this was never the final destination, but merely the classroom where we were meant to learn the skills of creation, so that one day, we too could become designers of worlds? That is the terrifying, exhilarating possibility, that the cycle is infinite, that we are both the result and the continuation of a cosmic chain of architects. That one day, in a far-off corner of the galaxy, another species may stand on a world as perfect as this one, look up at their sky, and ask the same question we ask now: who built this? So as we stare at the stars tonight, let us understand this: whether by chance or design, accident or intention, the fact remains, we are here, balanced on a miracle so precise, it borders on the impossible. And if we truly were designed, then perhaps the greatest proof of that is not written in stone, or encoded in myths, or hidden in mathematics, but alive, right now in us. Because we are the only species we know of that can ask this question, and perhaps that was the point all along. The Earth holds its silence. The stars continue to burn, and the question lingers, eternal, unshakable, echoing across the cosmos: what if our world was never ours at all?